America, we got to get back to doing what's expected of us as free citizens in this democracy. That means being tolerant, being respectful, staying informed, and being engaged. I'm former Congressman Joe Walsh. Follow me here and join the millions of Americans who are renewing their social contract with each other. The social contract, it's on us. Hey, I cannot tell a lie. My fatal flaw is I cannot tell a lie. And I still can't get over what happened in the White House yesterday. Like I still can't get over it. I woke up this morning thinking about it. The batshit craziness that went on in the White House yesterday. I wanted to apologize to the world again yesterday for that idiot that we have in the White House. It actually happened. And if you've forgotten, if you weren't paying attention yesterday, before I get to what I want to talk about today, just picture this. The Prime Minister of a sovereign country came to the White House yesterday to meet with the President of the United States. And that Prime Minister of that sovereign country had to tell the President of the United States to his face that his sovereign country wasn't for sale and would never be for sale. That actually happened yesterday, right? How whacked out is that? Prime Minister of a sovereign country sits down with Trump and has to say to his fucking face, hey, my country's not for sale. My sovereign nation is not for sale and never will be. Man, that actually happened. Apologies, Canada, and apologies to the rest of the world. We here in America, we got an idiot in the White House. And it's nothing really to laugh at, because that idiot in the White House, that office in which he sits, that's the most powerful office on the planet. So an idiot who's the President of the United States, man, that's really dangerous for the whole world, for this country, for America, but the whole world. And Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, handled the idiot perfectly, looked him in the eyes, looked him right in the face and said, Mr. President, let me tell you something. The owners of my country, the owners, the voters, Canada ain't for sale and it never will be. Now, will you fucking get serious? He didn't say that. That's what he thought. I'm sure that's what Mark Carney wanted to say, but he slapped around that child in the White House. Just still cracks me up that happened yesterday. Our conversation with the good folks of Lancaster, Pennsylvania continues today. Welcome, everybody. It is Wednesday, hump day. Hope you're all having a good week. As you know, every single week, I'm out having face-to-face conversations with Americans of every political stripe in every part of this country. We're filming these conversations. And this week, we're discussing the conversation I had with a group of about 20 Republicans, former Republicans, and Democrats in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It was a fascinating conversation, and maybe, right, because I'm partial. I'm a kid from the Midwest. Lancaster, Pennsylvania struck me as kind of where I grew up, Illinois, Indiana, that heart kind of the Midwest, even though I know technically Pennsylvania is not really the Midwest. Over and over from these good folks in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, I heard a yearning to try to figure out the best way to move this country forward, a yearning for how the opposition to Trump can most effectively move forward, and a yearning over and over in this conversation with these folks from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, a yearning for how this country can find common ground. This conversation today, the clip I'm going to play for you right here, the short clip of a longer piece of the conversation, dealt with that preoccupation of the best way forward for the Democratic Party. The Republican Party is what it is, and all of these Republicans and Democrats in Lancaster admitted and acknowledged that the Republican Party is Trump's party. It's now a full-on MAGA party. They know that. They acknowledge that. The former Republicans in the room, in the conversation, acknowledge that. The Republican Party is set. MAGA, you won. These folks in the room in Lancaster, they know that. MAGA won. The Republican Party is what it is. It ain't changing. But what about the Democratic Party? How does the Democratic Party best get their act together? How does the Democratic Party best become an opposition party to what the Republican Party is? How big, right, should the Democratic Party become? How small should it be? What should it focus on? How can it grow? All of that. That's sort of the preoccupation of today's part of the conversation. As always, you can go to my Substack, socialcontractwithjoewalsh.substack.com. Look for Conversations with Joe. You can go there. There it is, Keith. Thank you for the longer version of the clip I'm going to show you right now, and for all the other longer pieces of my conversation with the folks in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. But this brief clip right now, is there room in the Democratic Party for center-right Americans? Keith,
let's
give
talk
it to me.
about the structure and the future of the Democratic Party. Is there truly, and I'm asking the room this, is there room for an embrace, would there be an embrace of an actual center-right coalition that migrates into the
into the party?
Into the Democratic Party? And it would be, look, this is the way the Democratic Party coalition
I want you to take a first stab at this.
used to look.
Because I'm intrigued by what you said.
I think so, because, I grew up in East Petersburg, East Hempfield. All of my friends' parents were Republicans. My dad used to say that Joe Pitts did more for him than any Democrat that he ever met.
I know.
So there used to be a time when, like my family came as refugees. Joe Pitts helped my dad bring his brothers and sisters over here, and they ended up serving in the military. And it's like one of those great American success stories. But at some point, sometimes I look at it as like, what are those level-headed, good family Republicans that I grew up around doing right now?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how are they just allowing this to happen? So I think the Democratic Party has to take them in, and.
But my good friend from Chad, I was so intrigued by what you said 20 minutes ago when you said you used to be much more leftist.
Yeah.
Now you're a practical politician but you worry that the Democratic Party is losing their energy, they're losing young people, they're losing their base, and so then you bring in a bunch of Republicans? What's that going to do to the base?
I heard you earlier too, and I like what you said, but I will tell you that I think there's a purity test with the Democratic Party that hurts people like me.
Explain that.
So unless you're all the way out on every issue, all the way out on LGBTQ, all the way out on a socialist scale, or whatever the issue, If you're not all the way out there, you don't get that support from the Democratic Party like you need. And it happened to me when I ran for Congress. So Mike Stands Up was one of the organizations here who gave me a very lukewarm endorsement that basically said, don't vote for Obama. And I'm a moderate, probably reasonable. I'm probably center left now. I probably was center right most of my life, but I'm definitely left on the social issues. You all know the transgender battle I took on Eastern Lancaster, kind of Eastern as opposed to Western, and why. But I am concerned about the purity testing.
Just another quick plug for this whole concept of face-to-face conversations. Again, every week I'm going somewhere and I'm just having face-to-face conversations, not rallies and not speeches and not debates. And what's fascinating about when you sit down with 2 or 3 people, or in this case, 20 people from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, when you have conversations, you can hear and feel people wrestling with the topic at hand. I mean, real back and forth, real interchanges, real listening going on. This topic here, what should the Democratic Party do? Again, you can, if you listen to the longer version, you can hear, right, everybody in this room, and this was a room of Republicans, former Republicans, and Democrats, to a man and a woman. Everybody in this room acknowledged we've got 2 political parties. The Republican Party is set. Trump, it's your party. MAGA, it's your party. Boom. They're good. That's what it is. The Democratic Party doesn't know what it is. And this room was wrestling with this question. What is the Democratic Party? Is there room in the Democratic Party for center-right Americans? Some sort of center-right coalition within the Democratic Party? Not to give away the ending, but that room, because I want you to listen to the whole conversation, that room was torn. They didn't know. They didn't know. Plenty of centrists in that room who said the Democratic Party ought to welcome centrists, but there were progressives in that room who said, no, the energy in the party is on the left. That young black man who spoke up sits on the city council in Lancaster. He's an immigrant from Chad. And in the beginning of the conversation, he talked about how he wondered, and I think he felt like Kamala Harris blew it because she ran away from her left. She ran away from where the energy in the party was because Kamala Harris was in such a rush, right, to accept Republicans for Harris and Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, Joe Walsh, and all the rest. And he felt like that really stunted the energy in the party and maybe the turnout for Kamala Harris. But then you heard him right here say, well, okay, seems like the Democrats ought to take in and embrace these homeless independents and center-right folk who don't have a home anymore in the Republican Party. One gentleman in this group had a great line, and I'm going to mess up the line. But again, if you hear the whole conversation, go to my Substack, you'll hear the line. But he said something like, look, the cavalry is us, we the people, but the cavalry is no good if it's not a bipartisan cavalry, which means he was obsessed with MAGA is what it is. The Republican Party is what it is. The Democratic Party on its own can't defeat it. The Democratic Party needs a bipartisan coalition, needs center-right voters, needs former Republicans to all be a part of this coalition to help fight and defeat MAGA. It was, again, that's why I just so love conversations, and you always learn so much in these conversations. But we saw last week, right? 6 progressives from Los Angeles, 6 progressives from Los Angeles last week, wrestling with the same fucking question. What should the Democratic Party do? 6 progressives in Los Angeles last week acknowledging that the Democratic Party is messed up. They don't know what they are. They don't know what they want to be. They don't know which direction to go. Here you've got 20 Republicans, former Republicans, and Democrats across the country. In Lancaster, Pennsylvania, obsessed with this very same issue. What links these two groups is a fear of Trump, a fear of Trumpism, concern for the country. How can Trump and Trumpism be defeated, i.e. the best way forward? Obsessed with the answer to that question, but wrestling with this issue. This, by the way, is not at all of what we talked about. I'm trying to give you almost every day a different snippet, a different clip of a different topic, a theme, part of the conversation that we had. I heard finally in this conversation, you heard the last gentleman there discuss it. This notion of a purity test for the Democrats. That guy, by the way, is a former Republican who ran for office as a Democrat there in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And immediately he was faced with a Democratic purity test. Where do you stand on guns? Where do you stand on abortion? Did you vote for Obama? Blah, blah. Did you ever vote for Trump? I mean, an absolute down the line purity test. And he felt like, as a former Republican who became a Democrat, who opposes Trump, he wasn't welcomed and embraced by the local Democratic Party. This is a problem. As a former Republican, the Republican Party right now has its own purity test, right? Do you support Trump or not? And if you don't support Trump, get out of here. I mean, it's beautiful in how simplistic it is for the Republican Party right now. Doesn't matter where you stand on any freaking issue. Doesn't matter if you're a conservative, a moderate, former Tea Party guy like me. For the Republican Party, the only, repeat after me, the only litmus test is, where do you stand on Trump? That's it. And if you support Trump, you're in the club. If you oppose Trump, you're out of the club. The Democratic Party's purity test, litmus test, is a little more nuanced and a little more complicated. And it goes to, in this moment in time, how willing are Democrats going to want to be embracing former Republicans, former conservatives, former Trump voters? Will they welcome them into the Democratic Party tent? This was a big topic that this group of folks in Lancaster, Pennsylvania wrestled with. Fascinating conversation. If you want, again, the longer version of this topic, it's about a 10 to 12 minute clip. Go to my Substack, socialcontractwithjoewalsh.substack.com. I think you can find it under Conversations with Joe, or look in the archives. Effective Path Forward, I think it's titled. Listen to the whole clip. It's interesting. Thank you, Keith. There it is. That's where you go. Hey, the premise here, the thesis here, what I believe, what I heard every day last year as I was out there, and what I've heard almost every day since is a yearning for face-to-face conversations, not fights, not debates, not big rallies or speeches. Just sit down, listen to me. I'll listen to you. Let's have an exchange of ideas. Let's try to gain some understanding and learn from each other. Fascinating conversation with some really good folks in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. One other topic I wanted to get to this morning. One other topic. The Supreme Court yesterday allowed Trump's ban on transgender Americans serving in the military to hold for now, temporarily, until all of the litigation is settled. A win for the Trump administration, a loss for basic human decency and equality under the law and all the rest, as far as I'm concerned. But understand, this is like a temporary ruling. Trump gets sworn in. He reinstates his ban. Transgenders cannot serve in the military. He reinstates that ban right away. Right away, that ban is taken to court. And in 2 federal courts, the judges ruled that the ban couldn't stay while these cases are being litigated. The Supreme Court yesterday said, no, the ban can stay in place temporarily while these cases are being litigated. So reinstating the ban for just now, this is not permanent, may be permanent one day until all of this litigation is fed through the process. And ultimately, the Supreme Court is going to have to rule on the substance of this issue. So this lifting of the ban on Trump's executive order is just temporary. It's always so important. And by the way, I think it's a horrible ruling. Temporary or permanent, it's a horrible ruling. Gay, straight, transgender, don't give a damn who you are. If you are an American and you can meet the basic criteria to serve in our military, damn it, you should be free and allowed to serve, gay, straight, or transgender. End of story, period. This is an issue of basic equality under the law as far as I'm concerned. It's always important to have the facts in front of us, in front of you. Right now, there are roughly 4,000 or more, a little bit more than 4,000 transgender Americans serving in the military. As Emily Schilling, she's a Navy commander, a transgender Navy commander. She's one of the people who's one of the service members who's filed suit against Trump's ban on transgender serving in the military. As she said yesterday, transgender service members have served this nation with courage, skill, and selflessness for years. We've flown combat missions, led sailors, commanded troops, and stood watch. We are not a theory. We are not a policy debate. We are real people doing real jobs in defense of a nation we still believe in, even when it struggles to believe in us. The Trump administration's case in needing the ban on transgender Americans serving is that transgender Americans serving is a threat to military readiness. though no proof has ever been put forward on that. Arguments against the ban typically reach to the 14th Amendment, which requires that the laws of this country apply equally to everybody. So this issue is going to be litigated now for the next couple of years. But unfortunately, until there are answers on the substance of this issue, until our courts speak to that, Trump's ban on transgenders as of right now can hold. I just think that's just a horrible thing, an un-American thing. And I don't say this often because I'm always interested in conversation, and I sit down all the time with people who disagree with me. So I don't really mean what I'm about to say when I say I don't know how anybody can be against any American, gay, straight, or transgender, who meets the basic military requirements to serve. I don't know how anyone can be against any American serving if they meet the basic requirements, gay, straight, or transgender. I do know how anyone can be against it. So I'm spouting that off rhetorically. Again, we are a nation of laws. Unlike Donald Trump and MAGA, when the courts speak, we respect those rulings. We appeal those rulings when we don't like them. We don't defy court rulings, Donald Trump and MAGA. Learn from that. Pete Hegsth, the 17-year-old Defense Department head, he put out a bunch of shit yesterday after this ruling. He also posted a video, an official Defense Department video, in which Pete Hegseth said this. Go ahead and play
We
that.
are leaving wokeness and weakness behind. No more pronouns, no more climate change obsession, no more emergency vaccine mandates, no more dudes in dresses. We're done with that shit.
Stop that, Keith. Thank you. No more. That's the Secretary of Defense in an official Defense Department post. No more dudes in dresses. We're done with that shit. What an ugly, cruel, stupid, ignorant, un-American thing to say. And he said that knowing that when he said that, at the time he said that yesterday, over 4,000 transgender Americans were serving in his military, were serving and defending this country as he spoke those ugly, cruel, ignorant, un-American words. What a shitty thing to say. And to post official Defense Department post. And right, and just utterly right, unaware and ironic that dude right there, who's not in a dress, that dude right there is the most unqualified Defense Department head we've ever had. But again, the beauty of Trump is that he's forcing us in real time to decide what kind of country we want to be. And I want to be the kind of country that says to all of its people, all of our people, God love you all, gay, straight, transgender. You want to serve in the United States military, you got to meet this criteria. And if you meet this criteria, thank you so damn much. You are free to serve, gay, straight, or transgender. That's the kind of America I want to live in. I don't want to live in Pete Hegsth or Donald Trump's America, an ignorant America, a cruel America, dudes in dresses. That's what Hegsth, the Secretary of Defense, thinks about 4,000 people right now serving under his command, serving ably, serving bravely right now under his command, over 4,000 of them. And Hegsth considers them dudes in dresses. What a punk. What a punk. What a stupid, ignorant punk Pete Hegsth is. And those dudes in dresses, those 4,000 transgender Americans serving in the military right now, would take a bullet to defend Pete Hegsth, the Secretary of Defense. They'd take a bullet to defend Donald Trump, the President of the United States. They would lay down their lives to defend this country. And that's how Trump and Hegsth refer to them. Ugly shit. Thank you for listening. You want to shoot me an email, shoot me an email. The Social Contract with Joe Walsh at gmail.com. Good, bad, and ugly. You got some constructive criticism of this show. Want to hear from you. The Social Contract with Joe Walsh at gmail.com. Last quick thing. You want me to come to your neighborhood, your town, your village, your community, whatever, and sit down with you and have a conversation with you, and we'll film that conversation. I don't care what your politics are. I would love to sit down with you. Shoot me an email. Invite me to your area. This country we all love is dangerously divided. Only face-to-face conversation will help us heal that divide. Thanks for listening. Be brave.
Thank you for listening. Remember to listen, share, and follow The Social Contract with Joe Walsh on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere great podcasts are found. And be sure to leave a 5-star review. This has been The Social Contract with